Okay, so this next video is going to show you how to attach some attribute data to your boundaries that you've just downloaded. You should have also downloaded a zip file containing the data that we're going to attach. This is called OA health disabled age.zip. So as with the boundary data, we're going to first extract the attribute data, and see in the folder we have one CSV file. So if we open this up, this will open up in Excel on this computer. Okay, here's the file. So this is what a CSV file looks like in Excel. It looks pretty much like an Excel file. The difference is that a CSV file, CSV stands for comma separated values, and essentially it's just numeric data separated by columns. Excel and similar programs will recognize these commas, and every time a comma appears they will put the next value into the next cell in the table. So our CSV file here, if we can just expand these, we've got a number of variables along here. And then in the furthest left column here we have a series of geographic codes. Now these codes refer to individual output areas, the smallest level of geography that census data are produced for in the UK. And we can see, if we look at this first column, this is for all people, so this is the total people in each output area. We can see that roughly we have somewhere in the region of about 150 to 300 people in each output area. Next to all people we have various additional variables related to, in this case we have the first three are related to general health, so this is very good or good health, this is fair health, this is bad or very bad health. These three columns here, these refer to some kind of limiting long-term illness or disability. So these are people whose lives are limited a lot on a day-to-day basis due to some disability or long-term illness, limited a little, and then not limited at all. We also have some age groups here. This is age 0 to 15, age 16 to 24. These are broadly comparable to stages in the life course. 16 to 24 is kind of student ages, 25 to 34, 35 to 49, 50 to 64, and this is retirement ages and above, so it's 65 to 74. We also have some additional columns here that I will talk about a bit later on, but these relate to people with ill health and limiting illness, but who are also aged over 65. One thing we should also notice is that in England and Wales we have a lot of output areas. So if we scroll to the bottom of the file, we have some 181,000 output areas in England and Wales, so a lot of areas with data. And of course, just looking at this data in a table isn't that revealing, so it would be nice to map this and get an idea of the variables on a map. Right, so how do we do this? Well, if we close our CSV file and go back into QGIS, if we look in our project folder, you can see that in the file we've just unzipped we have our CSV file, which is now visible. Now, unlike with the boundary data, it's not a good idea to simply drag your CSV file into the layers. You can do that, but you won't be able to map it afterwards. It's the program won't read the data correctly. So in order to add the CSV data, what we need to do is click on this Add Delimited Text Layer button. So click on this and up pops the dialog box. So we then browse to find our CSV file. If we go to the project folder, and click on the file, open, then appears up here in the top of the dialog box. Our file format, we have a CSV, comma separated values, that's fine. The one thing we need to do here though is what QGIS is trying to do is it's trying to look for some kind of geographic information, some coordinate information to try and map this. Now we don't have any coordinates attached to this data at all, so we want to check the no geometry only attribute in table box here. The layer name, this is the layer as it's going to appear in this layers box here. You can change this if you like. I'm going to leave it with the default value that it's read from the file name. And you can see here underneath this is a summary of the data as it's going to be added into QGIS. So if we're happy with this, we can then click OK. And you'll see at the top of our layers we now have our new attribute table that's appeared. We right click on the attribute table and click Open Attribute Table. Up pops the attributes as they should have looked in your CSV file. Now there's one thing we need to do to make sure that we're going to be able to map this data. So if we close the attribute table, if we right click on the layer again and go into Properties, here the Properties box opens up, and just to check that the data is imported correctly, I'm going to click on the Fields option. So here we have the IDs and the names of all of the columns in our data table, but what I'm interested in here is this area, the type name. Now the first column has some letter characters in it, and so QGIS will automatically recognize this column as containing text. Now text is good, you know, we can do some things with text, but in terms of creating a useful map, we need to have some kind of numeric data in our other columns. Now if we had just dragged our OA Health CSV into our layers, all of these other columns would have also been read in as text, and this is no good. By going through the add comma separated values dialog, it adds the data correctly, and we can see here we have some integers. Integers are whole numbers, and as we move to the end of the file we should hopefully be getting some doubles. Yeah, so doubles, these are numbers with decimal points in them. So it's good practice just to check that your data is imported correctly and you've got these integer and double values in your file. If you're happy with that, we can then close the layer properties for the time being. So in order to join our boundary data to our attribute data, we need to use the unique identifying codes which are relevant for each output area. So if we just open up the attribute table for our boundary data, you can see that in here we have a series of codes, two codes. We have the output area codes, and this is another set of codes which relate to the local authority districts. We're not interested in these currently, but we're going to use these output area codes here. If we open the attribute table for the attributes as well, we can see here that we've got codes that match in each file. So where these codes match, this is where we're going to be able to join the data together to create some mappable census data. So how do we do this? Well, okay, if we right click onto our output areas again, go back into Properties, what I'm going to do is use the joins function to join the data together. So if we click on joins, to add a new join we click on this green plus down the bottom here. So click on green, and up pops the dialog box which enables us to join our data together. So I'm going to be joining the only other data that I have available. This is my output area, health and disability data, and I'm going to be joining it to the layer I've just clicked on, the output areas. The code I'm going to use is the geography code in the first column, and I'm going to match it to the OA11CD column in the other data. If we just open up the attribute tables again, you can see how we're going to match this. So we have OA11CD is our target field, and geography code is our join field. So these are where we're going to match it. If I click OK, QGIS goes off and creates the join, and it tells you that up here the join is now completed. Click Apply. Now if we go back into our fields column, we should see that as well as the original fields in our shapefile, we also have a series of new fields with our data in. Now here I realise I've actually just made a slight mistake when I carried out the join, and that what I've done here is included the table name at the beginning of each of the variables. So actually I'm going to remove this join and do it again. So to remove the join, click on the minus and apply, and then to create the join again, this time without the prefix. It remembers the join I was doing before. If I click this custom field name prefix, here is where it was trying to put in the table name at the front of each variable. If I just delete this and click OK, and then wait for the join to carry out. It's now finished. I click Apply, go back into Fields. Here we can now see that the fields have been added, but they've not included the table name at the front of each field, which is this is useful for later on when we come to export our data. So click OK, and we now have a map which doesn't look much different, but underlying this map now are some data. So we can now map our data by going back into Properties, and this time I'm going to click on the Style option. So we have a number of styles we can apply to our map. If we wanted to, we could just colour our map slightly different colour orange if we wanted. Again, that's not telling us much. What we would really want to do is colour our map according to the variables that we've just attached to our data. To do this, instead of single symbol, I'm going to choose a graduated colour scheme. Now, there are a number of options for choosing colour schemes. What I recommend is that if you click on this colour ramp option, if you select Colour Brewer, Colour Brewer gives us a very wide choice of quite aesthetically pleasing colour schemes to use for our map. So I think I'm going to use this red to purple scheme in this case, and I'm going to use it for a 5 colour scheme. Click OK. I'll use the default colour here. Now I need to choose a column to map, and if I click on the column drop down menu, these are all of the numeric values in my data table that I'm able to map. At the end of the file we have some percentages. There are various reasons why it's not good practice to map raw data. We should try and use data that's been standardized in some way, and here we're going to standardize using percentages, and I'm going to map all of the people in the United Kingdom and I'm going to map them according to the proportion of people in each output area that have bad or very bad health outcomes according to the census. I'm going to keep my classes as 5, so it's going to create me 5 categories. And if I click the classify button here, QGIS will decide which values correspond to each colour in my pink colour app here. There are a number of ways in which the software can actually decide where these breaks occur in the data. Currently here we have equal intervals, so it's taking all of the data and it's divided each of these 5 up into equal groupings. This will create a map of a certain style. Actually, what I'm going to use here is the Jenks natural breaks option. There's some information on the website about how natural breaks differs from some of the other categorizations. If I click OK, it might take a little while to calculate this, but I should get then my natural breaks calculated. Good practice is always to click classify after you've done anything. It just redraws the map whenever you re-click classify. Okay, so if I now want to apply this scheme to this map, I just click the apply button, and you can see all of a sudden I have colours applied to my map according to the percentage of people in each area that have bad or very bad health outcomes. Now this map doesn't look great at the moment. There's a lot of black areas. These are where we have very small output areas. The black areas, these are just the boundaries. So we can remove the boundaries, so our map becomes a little bit clearer. If we click on symbol, and inside symbol I want to click on this simple fill element here. And currently the borders for our, if you imagine this is one of the output areas, currently the borders have a solid line. What I want to do is remove this solid line and go for no pen. And there's a whole range of additional options that you could play with here if you wanted to. I'm just going to click no pen and then click OK. Then if I apply this to the map, all of a sudden the boundaries are removed and you can see far more clearly the areas in the country where we have clusters of people experiencing more bad or very bad health than in other areas. And here's our finished map for the time being. Okay, now once we've created our map and we've joined our attribute data to our boundaries, it's good practice when carrying out this kind of mapping to export your joined boundary data and attribute data as a new file. Now there's a number of reasons for this, but essentially it makes a more stable file for doing more analysis with later on. So it's always good practice to save our map as a new file. So if we right click on our joined layer and go to save as, what we're going to do is save our joined data as a new Esri shapefile. There are additional options, as you can see here, but here we're going to focus on the Esri shapefile. So I'm going to call my new file OA Health, and I'm going to save it into the directory I've been working in, which is my project folder, and I'm going to save it as OA Health in this folder. This option here will add the new file to the map. I think I will do this. This CRS box here, this is the coordinates reference system, and we're currently in British National Grid. We're going to keep this in British National Grid. There are other coordinate reference systems available, but we are quite happy with this one currently. So if we click OK, QGIS will export our data, and it should, when it's finished, add a new map without any colours in to the map window. So here we are. So here's our new OA health. It's currently covering the other layer. We can actually move these layers around if you click and drag your layers. So now we've got the OA health layer on top. We can turn layers on and off. So that's the OA health layer turned off. We're going to move it above. We can turn it back on again. So if you're working with more than one layer in your map, you can play around with various different options here. I could turn off some of the colours if I wanted. Have only the pale colours showing. There's a range of options available to you for your values. What I'm going to do now is close this layer. So I'm going to remove it from the window. I'm going to remove the legend entries as well, and we're just going to now continue mapping with our new OA health layer. Again, if we right click, we can then open the attribute table, and you can see that all of our variables are pre-joined. We've saved this shapefile with values pre-joined to it, so we can now map these to our heart's content. Okay.